to date my sister. None of these dirt bags.
None of them.
That's the only answer.
None of them. Try me. You ain't touching my sister. Nobody.
All these guys are dirt bags. None of them.
The men who are around, even the men who are in their own circle, possibly the men in their own families, are not to be trusted. Women aren't crazy or paranoid. The men who are around other men, the men who engage in this locker room talk, the men who are around when women are not, are the ones telling us these guys are evil. These guys are not to be trusted. Notice how often the word dirtbag came up. It wasn't, oh, he's a player, he's a womanizer, oh, he likes to get around. Nothing that implied he just liked to date a lot of women. Dirtbag has a whole other significance. It signified a man who will actually harm. A guy who didn't have a sister. Notice how he said, I don't have one, but just imagining a sister of his with one of these guys just sent him into a spiral. Absolutely not. If I had a sister, you couldn't touch my imaginary sister.
I love her commentary all the time, always. So as somebody who worked in the outdoors with men and in the film industry and in the comedy world, but basically had worked jobs where I was around men all the time and I heard the way they talk and I heard what they say. What I always found so interesting is that they would talk so much crap about women, right? Because that we know that men bond over hating us. That's like the glue that holds a lot of them together. And, you know, they would just be like, hail damage this. Hail damage is a way that they described cellulite, which I have always had, like as far as I can remember. I don't ever remember being an adult and not having cellulite on my thighs. So they gave me a major complex about that because I didn't realize guys cared so much, which they don't, and really, but it's another way that they just love to hate us and bond over it. And they would talk about, you know, women who'd shaved down there or not. And they called it dirty and all this stuff if they had. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, I'm not bald. Am I supposed to be doing that? Because I don't want to do that. I live in my truck. How am I going to do that anyway? Like, I was just like, I learned so much about men and the way they talk just by being around them and by being the cool girl, you know, because I had no choice if I wanted to survive in this mountain town of 10 men for every one woman, which you would think is good, but it's actually not. All the men in that town are trash. Jackson Hole, any ski town in Alaska, any ski town in most places, it's mostly men who suck. Do not date these men. Please do not date most of these men. They are hobo, schedules, Peter Pans, gold diggers, and when they get injured, you will take care of them, and they're going to use you in your house for a storage unit. Anyway, I already had an eating disorder. I was like bulimic the whole time that I worked these jobs. So listening to them talk about women, objectifying them, criticizing their bodies, literally like talking about little girls and teenagers who get off the bus and talk about them. I was like, oh my God, I had no idea that men would say that about girls, like without being ashamed. And so I'm listening to them say this stuff all day, every day. I had tried to speak about it at a certain point and be like, it makes me, and bah, what are you, feminists? Okay, I guess I just gotta pretend that I'm okay with this because I don't have any friends in this town. I don't know, it's all men. So, you know, I'm not proud of being like a cool girl, but it was a survival mechanism, which it always is. But, you know, if I'd been not like 23 or whatever age in my early 20s dealing with those men, if I'd been, 46-year-old Melanie, I'd be handling that very differently. But what was so weird to me is that these men would talk so much crap about every woman, and then at the same time, in the same breath, feel somehow protective of me. Like it's like they can't do this. They can't make this connection in their head that, oh, like I can't just hate all women, judge all women, talk crap about women, exploit all women, every woman in my life, and then feel like protective of this one. That's not how it works. I remember I was dating the bartender at the Moose in Jackson Hole. If you know, you know. Oh my God. This guy literally was like, this guy was the worst. And because I hated myself and I was bored and I tore my ACL, I couldn't ski the whole winter anyway. Why not hook up with a bunch of toxic men to pass the time? You know, this was like before I dealt with a lot of my own childhood essay and all my own trauma, right? And I remember like some of my guy friends were like so worried about me that I was like, you know, hooking up with this man that they knew was like one of the worst dudes in town. One of the worst dudes in town. And I just remember being like, feeling like touched that they would be protective of me, but very confused that they could say all this stuff about women, strangers, you know, tourists, and even like women they were dating and hooking up with. And then somehow like feel like they had the right to be protective over me. And what's also funny is that, you know, my dad is the one who warned me about men. And it's so funny because he also was like one of the, you know, not the safest man in my life. One of the least safe men in terms of being a narcissist, an alcoholic, and all other things. But he literally told me from, since like an early age, like, I mean, eating like Lucky Charms and watching cartoons kind of age. Me and my sister. And he repeated it through his entire life. Until he got Alzheimer's, he was literally saying this on a regular basis. There are no good men. They're all a bunch of grapists and, you know, unalivers. You know, think about it all. You know, like literally just go on this same lecture all the time. Like, don't trust men. They're all gonna, you know, like, and I'm just like, and then he'd be like, but when you go on a date with one, make sure you don't order the lobster or you're gonna owe him something. And I'm like, what? Like I didn't even know what that meant because I was too young to understand like that men think that we are just schmegs workers and that if they buy us dinner, they're entitled to do whatever they want. You know? I was just like, but I don't like lobster. I want chicken fingers. You know, and he's like, I don't care what you eat. Get a salad. Just don't order the expensive thing or you'll pay for that later. And me just being like, okay. And then when I was in New York City and finally went on my first date ever in my 30s, first date, I never dated. I was like so afraid of men, so traumatized by men in my childhood that I wanted nothing to do with them. And when I went on my first date where some man actually took me out, I wouldn't let him buy me anything. I ordered a water with lemon. Because to me, a man been buying me dinner meant I owed them something. And so let me tell y'all, like Cecilia is so right. These men will literally tell you, they'll warn you, they won't leave you alone with some men because they know. Then at the same time, we'll be like, cat lady, you're gonna die with your cat. You need a man, you're gonna hit a wall. What are you gonna do if you're alone? It's all BS. Don't listen to anything they say. It's all projection. It's all fear. It's all delusion. It's all admissions of guilt of what they really feel or think or whatever. But it's like, don't listen to anything they say other than when they warn you about a man. That is the only thing I listen to. If they're like, oh, watch out for that guy, I take that very seriously. Everything else, don't care. Shut up.